Welcome today. My name is Corey Williams, and I'm a librarian here at the Fayetteville Public Library. And I want to thank you all for being here today while we discuss Uchenna Nwoke's new debut novel. I would like to introduce our moderators for this evening. They're Dr. Carrie Banton and Carnesia Elizabeth Connor. Dr. Banton and Dr. Connor are both university professors at the U of A. Dr. Banton is the chair of the history department at the University of Arkansas, and Dr. Connor is a teaching assistant professor of social studies at the University of Arkansas, jointly appointed to curriculum and instruction in African and African American studies. Both Dr. Banton and Dr. Connor both host a podcast through KUAF. It is called Undisciplined, and it is produced in collaboration with the African and African American Studies program with the university and KUAF, and this event tonight is being recorded for their podcast. But I would also like to introduce our guest of honor, Uchenna Nwoke. Uchenna lives and writes in Nsukka, Nigeria. His short stories have appeared in Transition, Elsewhere Lit, Trestle Ties, Oyster River Pages, the Evergreen Review, and other places. He's received multiple fellowships from MacDowell and the Vermont Studio Center. He is an Artist Protection Fund Fellow and the Arkansas International Writer at Risk Residency Fellow, and he currently lives in Fayetteville, Arkansas. He is also a 2019 Grey Wolf Africa Prize finalist, and his debut novel, The Liquid Eye of a Moon, is the topic for this evening. It has been described as a Nigerian Catcher in the Rye and a masterful debut that breaks the silence about a hidden and dangerous contemporary caste system. So if you'll all join me in welcoming Dr. Banton, Dr. Connor, and Uchenna.
Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Uchenna. Welcome to
Yes.
Undisciplined.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
A live
Thank you.
audience, welcome to Undisciplined.
Yeah.
Yes, we're happy
Yes,
to have you.
that's right. Get a little undisciplined with us.
Oh,
that's right.
absolutely.
I think I should get a copy of my book.
Ah, okay, sure. Yeah. While he's getting the book. Thank you so very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. This is the UK copy.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Very colorful. Very colorful.
I tried to match the color of the book.
Yeah, you did. Looks nice.
Yeah.
It is.
But for this season of the podcast, we are going to be, talking to various guests, and Uchenna has been one of the ones that we've been interested in talking to for a very long time. Mostly because, right, we're often, interested in bringing about various voices, representing varying experiences and places to our audience. And Uchenna, you bring such an interesting perspective and interesting dynamic in your work as an artist.
Thank you.
I'm particularly interested about this idea of caste. What was the movie that came out recently that was really dealing with the caste in India?
Oh, yeah. It's after Isabella Wilkerson's book, Caste. Ava DuVernay.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Directed the movie. And so this idea of caste has become a very important topic in terms of our public knowledge of transforming how we're understanding racism or race in the way that society is structured hierarchically.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to talk about The Liquid Eye of a Moon.
Yeah. Can we start by talking about what prompted you to write this book and interesting title?
Yes.
Liquid Eye of the Moon.
I need to know.
Tell us. We need to know.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I was motivated to start work on The Liquid Eye of a Moon by acts of discrimination and othering that I find around me. Let's say the story is life-wired by empathy and community. I wanted to break the silence surrounding hidden and dangerous contemporary system of human tabooing. It's not just the regular caste that you know. Yeah, that's why I call it human tabooing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Human tabooing.
Human
Explain
tabooing.
that a little bit, what you
Yeah.
mean by human,
Human
tabooing.
How is
tabooing
that different from a
is a
caste?
form of intergenerational discrimination that people practice in eastern Nigeria. Yeah, the descendants of people enslaved by deities are oppressed in institutionalized ways.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you talked about the title.
Yeah.
I think I should give a background.
Yes,
Okay.
of course.
Yeah, well, like the Liquid Eye of the Moon is set in an Igbo community, a place called Ishiayanashi. Yeah, and a portion of the book is set in the post-transatlantic slave trade era, and then the other portion is has a more contemporary setting. You know, so devastated and disintegrated by several, deadly attacks against their community. A few persons who survived the onslaughts created a medicine, Ezewany, which translates to a woman king.
The woman king.
Yeah, an ethereal entity with supernatural powers to try to protect the remnants of their community against inter-village warring and slavery activities. You know. So in writing the Liquid Eye of a Moon, I drew on many sources. Yeah, Wando Achebe writes, and I quote, it's not the Achebe that you know.
Not
No,
Chinua.
Wando. This is
Wando.
Wando Achebe.
Okay.
Yeah, in her paper, Ego Maogo. Yeah, I quote, after the abolition of the transatlantic slave trade, slaves continued to be generated in the Igbo hinterland by intergroup conflicts, judicial incriminations, and oracular decrees for its internal market, unquote.
Really?
Yeah. So Ezewany is a mother and a warrior medicine created to protect and rebuild that community after its devastation. Yeah. So a medicine can be a personal amulet. It can be it can be the more powerful shrine type medicine. Yeah. Wando Achebe writes again, and I quote, Northern Igbos believe in the presence of a visible universe of human beings, natural forces, and phenomena, and in the invisible universe of divine beings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Deities are believed to have the supernatural powers to help or hinder. And at the zenith of the supernatural world is the genderless Ezechitoke, or God,
Yeah, which is
who
very
is
different.
who is the creator of all things. A force too great to behold. Ezechitoke is assisted by a pantheon of more accessible lesser gods and goddesses who are autonomous and interdependent, unquote. Yeah. Ezewany would become so powerful and evolve into a revered deity, a revered goddess. Yeah. As part of her repopulating and expansionist mission, Ezewany enslaved trespassers and seized their belongings. She administered her will through a physical agent known as Atama. So the Liquid Eye of a Moon is the contemporary fallout of the history of a man enslaved by Ezewany for murdering another man who happened to be the property of Ezewany, and a woman enslaved for picking snails in Ezewany's territory. The Liquid Eye of the Moon is the story of Dimpa, their descendant, a boy whose desire to pull his family out of poverty and rebury his aunt in a proper grave takes him to places where he deepens his knowledge of social segregation and reckons with his anger against systems that have oppressed his family. So that's the background. And about the title, borrowing the words of Martha Ann Toll, liquid in the title brings to mind the fluidity of life and the lack of control that humans have over our fate. Yeah.
Interesting.
And so where does the moon come into this? And so is the liquid eye of the moon this watchful force, like representing that deity that is, which is interesting that you said the deities can help or hinder, because traditionally we just hear of the helpful deity. So how is the deity wrapped up in this in the moon?
In that
or
cosmology.
Is it in the cosmology?
No, the thing is that, he was just, I also brought in the title because I think it's lyrical, yeah. So, Dimpa, after he had finished rebuilding his aunt's grave, so he lay on the tomb, and then there was moon, and then he was looking into the moon, and then that particular the liquid earth moon is used figuratively to capture his mood at that particular time, and then the meat of the book, which is love and loss.
Yeah.
So when you're writing this story, is it at all prompted by your personal experience, or is it a truly an act of a work of fiction?
Well, I guess I was writing about myself when I think of the theme of resilience in the story.
Yeah.
Very strong.
I am a very resilient person.
Yes.
Yeah, I am a self-taught writer. Yeah,
Impressive.
Yes, very impressive.
but I rediscovered myself as a writer in 2016 after I met Ejiofugu. Ejiofugu was an undergraduate of the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. Yeah, he was in the English and Literary Studies department. Meeting Ejiofugu redefined fiction writing for me. He took my writing through deep diagnosis, and he read whatever I wrote, gave me feedback that helped me to recognize strengths in my weaknesses. Yeah, and that's how. But I didn't have an early contact with reading and writing because my parents did not go to school, so my going to school was practically a matter of following the crowd. Nobody
I think we can all
respects my work.
understand
Nobody
that.
cares for me.
You went to go play football. And,
School was more of a playground.
yeah.
And I didn't go to the regular secondary school. Yeah, I went to what we called commercial school in those days, one of those privately owned schools. Yeah, and I think the real contact I had with reading with writing was long after commercial school. You know, growing up, our world was not as digitalized as it is today.
Yeah.
We didn't have social media. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have computers. I'm trying to tell you how I taught myself to write.
Right.
Some of us didn't even have family TV. So what we had were books. Friends would exchange
Yes.
novels.
What kind of books were you guys exchanging?
We were exchanging. We had limited access to books because I grew up in a rural area.
Right.
So our access to book was quite limited. The books were mostly crime thrillers by James Hadley Chase and the Nigerian Pacesetter series. Yeah, I read a whole lot of them.
Did you
And
read like Hardy Boys?
Hardy Boys? No,
Oh, Nancy Drew?
no.
What stories were you reading? Like, were you reading
It's a
I
Nigerian
read
Sure,
novels?
anything. I read anything.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Was there
I
a
read
story
anything.
like this?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, stories. Yeah, stories, but not. Yeah, I'm coming to that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but I'm trying to tell you how when I came into contact with reading and writing, real contact. So I read those crime thrillers, Nigerian pace setter series, and I was captivated by the way the authors crafted the stories in a way that captivated their readers. So I challenged myself to write like those authors.
It's interesting because Chimamanda Adichie, your country woman,
yes,
right?
yes.
She writes about growing up, and her idea of stories were American and British stories,
Okay.
right? And how she longed for the taste of ginger beer because those were the stories
Yeah.
that she read, and
It
she
happened-
didn't know that black people or African people could exist in
right,
books.
yeah.
You know, because all she read were British books.
Yeah.
And I was wondering too, as you were reading these books, if you were developing any kind of an African imagination to
Yeah. Of
come
course.
and imagine,
Of
you
course.
know,
Yeah.
this kind of a
I
thing.
was just telling Bill, my friend, the other day. We were driving and a car raced past, and I looked at the name of the car. It's Buick. Buick. I asked, I told Buick, I read a lot about Buick back in Nigeria, and then I found myself each time I sat down to write stories, the name of the cars I would write would be Buick, and such names that I read in those crime thrillers.
Oh.
Yeah, but then I also read Chinua Achebe's novels.
That's right. That's what
Yeah.
changed
Yeah.
Adichie,
Yes,
right?
yes,
When
yes.
she came
And
to
then
discover African
I've also
books.
had the opportunity to read Chimamanda's books.
Uh-huh.
Helen Habila, Chigozie Obioma, they're all writers from my country.
Right.
Yeah, fabulous writers. You know, even though my access to books was limited in Nigeria, these authors have remained my very strong influence. You know, over time. Yeah, I really like their work. Achebe's unique and powerful blend of language and narrative techniques. The rhythm of the sense of rhythm and flow in their work, the vivid character portrayals and world building techniques. They are wonderful authors.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah.
So they influenced me a lot. These authors that I have just called them. Yeah.
So how often did you read about stories that kind of capture what you've written about here? Because what I enjoyed reading in this work is your learning about the Nigerian Civil War,
Yeah.
African spirituality, and is that Nigerian spirituality, or is it Western African spirituality, or is it African spirituality?
Or is it African diaspora spirituality?
Right.
Yeah. Because can we claim that too? Can we get some Olorun and Yemeya?
That's Yoruba, right? that's the Yoruba.
Okay, so this is
Igbo.
Yeah.
This is Igbo.
spirituality.
Yeah.
Okay, in this book. Okay.
Yeah, it's Igbo.
So this is Igbo specific.
Yes.
Yes.
It's Igbo. So
When did you learn about the Nigerian Civil War? Because it's very
Okay,
prevalent
yeah.
in this book.
I wasn't born then.
Okay.
Yeah. The factors that led to, I'll begin from, the factors that led to the collapse of the first republic in Nigeria was as much the fear of ethnic domination as corruption. You know, the southern
Fear of which ethnic domination?
Well, I'm coming to that. Yeah. The southern region, made up of the Igbo and the Yoruba and the other minority tribes, believed that the Hausa Fulani They are the Northerners.
Right.
Yeah, that they would use their demographic preponderance to perpetrate hegemony. You know? And on the other hand, the House of Fulani feared that they could lose the contest of the economic and political structures of the Federation to the more educated South. The South was more educated. So against this turbulent background, the election of October 1965 was flawed. In January 1966, there was a coup following the fraudulent election that brought Tafawa Balewa brought him into power as prime minister. Tafawa Balewa, the prime minister, was murdered. He was murdered along with two other premiers and other people. And then the setting up of a military administration under Major General Agui Ironsi. He's an Igbo man. He was an Igbo man, Major General Agui Ironsi. And his plan to abolish the regions and impose a unitary government sparked anti-Igbo riots in the north and led to the assassination of Major General Agui Ironsi by northern officers who accused leaders of the January coup of favoring Igbo domination. These anti-Igbo riots resulted in the program in which thousands and thousands of Igbos were massacred, along with some other Southerners. This led to the secession of the Eastern region and the declaration of the Republic of Biafra, which in turn led to the Nigerian Civil War, fought between 1967 and 1970.
Right.
So the liquid eye of moon examines the political, the economic and political domination of the post-war Igbo nation. Yeah. And the violent suppression of their agitations. You know, so that's it, yeah.
Wonderful. You know, you write about in your book, and as Corey introduced you, she talked about The Catcher in the Rye.
Okay.
You know, coming of age book. You know, would you characterize what are the books you would love your book to be lined up with?
Okay.
And
Yes.
would you know, what are the other maybe coming of age novels
Do
in
you agree?
Nigeria? Yeah, do you agree
you
with that
agree with that?
characterization of Catcher in the Rye?
Yeah. I made reference to not only Catcher in the Rye and the book. I made reference to Black Moses, to The Invincible Man, and other books. I mentioned those books in the story either because I feel that they are in conversation with the Liquid Eye of a Moon, or because I like the way they confront inequality.
Okay. Could you say something specifically to Invisible Man?
Invisible Man, you know, in my story, Dimpa, the protagonist, had to fight another boy.
Okay.
When he went to become houseboy to a rich woman in a mansion who made them fight for her entertainment.
Right.
There's something like that in the
Yes.
Invincible Man. Yeah, the student who was made to the black guys who were made to beat each other up.
So
Yeah.
you saying the black guy, you're talking about Invisible Man, you've talked about resistance,
Yes.
right? And, you know, you're African, and we think that as people in the African diaspora, those would be things that we relate to, right, as in the diaspora, right? Is this a story that, you know, how how much could we extrapolate this story across Nigerian society? Because all that resilience and all those ideas, all the slavery that you're talking about, I don't think the diaspora really reflect on when they think about Africa like that. They think about that the conversation is focused on that. It's almost always focused on
outside of
yes. It's well, we left,
right.
and we're kind of separated from Africa, and these kinds of common threads of experiences that it's not much thought about, but you're making that connection.
I don't understand you very well.
Well, when we think about Africa and the diaspora, there are many differences that the differences are what people tend to focus on. First of all, people don't even think that there's race in Africa. Even though Africa is what gives us blackness. They thought Africa gives us blackness, and then we come here and we're in America or in the Caribbean, and then we're black.
I think there's more race in Africa than in the diaspora.
So much, right? But before the transatlantic slave trade, during and after, it is the profound and amazing legacy, of people and resources that the African continent has gifted to the world through time, talent, and productivity. But I think, what to Karie's point is that when we think about the effects of slavery, for me, it is always mostly in context of what has happened outside of Africa and the displacement and movement of people and how that has impacted our thinking and our memory or cultural legacy. But often we don't hear the story about how the remnants of slavery has impacted the development of Africa, of the Igbo people, of
the Yoruba people,
of the Hausa, Fulanis. So it's a very interesting and new nuance to the story for folks who have not been to the continent or spent a lot of time studying.
Okay, it has impacted a lot. Yeah, because like the story about human tabooing, sometimes it thrives in an unspoken manner.
Yes. Say more about that.
And sometimes it manifests in the form of violent clashes between kindreds.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think we inherited violence from the transatlantic slave trade. Because people...
It forced you to fight against one another.
People learned to hate each other. Like it is in the book. The community in question, Isha Yanashi, fell to the inter-slavery activities of its enemy neighbors. There were incursions to the extent that the community disintegrated. Many of the citizens fled.
Right.
And then many were killed because there was also the issue of inter-village wars.
Warfare.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the few that were left had to do something to protect themselves.
Right.
You look at you see the scenario there, the aggression. The aggression has been established.
Yeah.
As a part of the
So
survival.
It's in the consciousness.
Yes.
Yes, it's in the consciousness.
It's a part of the post-traumatic disorder.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Surely,
know.
sure, yeah.
And I think that's one of the most profound ideas that I'm taking with me is how our consciousness has become so okay with caste that we reproduce it unintentionally through our behaviors and how we treat folks and engage in that warfare. And it becomes internal warfare even against ourselves. So how did you layer in all of that reproduction of the caste system through your characters in this book? How are they reproducing that consciousness of caste?
Yeah, Dimba, it started when he visited his friend, Eke, his closest friend. And then Eke's mother sweeps the ground on which he trots. In Igbo land, it connotes a deep dislike.
When you sweep the
when
ground.
you sweep the ground
After some-
on which someone walks.
Okay.
So So when that happened, um, he became conscious of his identity. He began to suspect that something was wrong with his family.
Right. Of the tabooing.
Yeah, the tabooing. And then whatever it was not an issue for discussion in his family. His mother gets very sensitive each time he tried to talk about it, because they were trying to conceal it
Of course.
from him as much, at
You
least
don't want it to
allow
move
him to,
on.
because they know it's capable of inciting hatred. So he started to, he became suspicious of everyone in their village. And then his father lost the village headship, which was his right. Yeah. And he was distraught. He was deeply disappointed, deeply hurt, because his father did not fight back. He expected his father
just took it.
to fight back.
Yeah.
But his father did not fight back. And he's going back. He was hoping to go back to school when his father became the village head. That desire to go back to school depended so much on his father becoming the village head and controlling the village patrimony. But when all that fell apart, he realized that his family was finished and they had nothing more to offer him. At that point, he decided to go away, to fend for himself, because he realized that there was hatred in the village against his family, and his father, they are so poor. They're so poor, even to eat was a problem. Yeah, so I think slave trade has incited hatred and aggression amongst my people. Let me say my people.
But
I don't know about other areas.
The subtext of that is also a sense of powerlessness.
Yeah.
Like you're speaking about the power to kind of escape certain conditions. They call Nigeria Africa's sleeping giant.
Yeah.
Right? Once that giant wakes up.
Let me tell you, I find the narration that Nigeria is an oil-rich country. I read it all the time. I find it paradoxical, because it doesn't reflect in the lives of the common people. Yeah.
But it's a resource curse. Like it's the same thing with West Virginia in the United States. They're coal rich, but they're poor. You know what I mean?
So is it now? So is it a cost to be?
It's an extractive economy where the people who can afford to extract go in and take it out, and the people who have to be there and suffer the environmental damage and have to be the labor, sell their labor for little wages. They might feel that sense of powerlessness, and that's what I see you're kind of also getting at, where it's like the overwhelming sense of powerlessness on a state level, maybe on a spiritual level, on an individual level, that maybe also, this is also where the spiritual part, where the gods come in, that you also have to really depend on, because it's so overwhelming. You have to depend on these kind of, cosmological forces.
And I think it's easy to think that, oh, well, if you're in a caste system, or if you're being subject to some oppressive force, you can liberate yourself, right? And I think the layering of understanding how people, everybody, your neighbor, the person next to you, is a reinforcement of that system, can aid in that sense of powerlessness.
Yeah.
And so, like, how do you, when you have not just systems, but then people around you that are reinforcing this idea that you are powerless? And so I think it's interesting, the tension in the household between the mother and the father and their religious differences. How do you think their approach to power and reclaiming that power was different based on their attachment to their deity?
You know, Dimpa's father, he was following the traditional religious practice. Uh, he believed so much in Ezenwanye, in the powers of Ezenwanye, in the protection of Ezenwanye, as against his mother, who was struggling to, ensure her children's Christian salvation. So the question you ask is about reclaiming power.
And how did the mother and the father kind of participate or believe? How did the deities impact their belief about reclaiming power in the Igbo society?
Okay. It's kind of they were coming from two different. This person is coming on this lane.
Two different
This other
traditions.
person is coming on the other lane. But they were comfortable with each other. They were a couple. They weren't worshiping the same. They didn't have the same system of worship. This other person goes to church, And then I like Dimpa's father for his consistency, in his worship of Ezenwanye. Even though everyone manages to show their face in the church on Sunday, and then they steals behind to make supplications to Ezenwanye. Yeah, but
You remind me of something. Like my grandmother, as the diaspora in Jamaica, my grandmother would go to a Pentecostal church and then would come home and sprinkle stuff.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like worship.
Nigeria is multi-religious. With Islam, Christianity, and traditional African religion dominating. So, but religion is used as an instrument of political domination and instrument of deceit in
Yeah.
Nigeria.
But it's instrumentalized in different ways. Like there are moments, maybe in polite company, people are Christian, but when the rubber meets the road, it's like, Azawani, please, come on, here, I have an altar.
There is a scene. There is a scene in the book where Dimpa's mother took him to church to be delivered of the demons that were supposedly possessing him. And it's a practice in Nigeria. When you are being delivered, you are expected to fall. Yeah, they make it seem like it's Holy Ghost that's pushing you. I don't know if.
Oh, I've seen the videos.
Okay. you see people falling here and there.
Yes.
So when the pastor was praying for Dimpa did not fall. Of course, he did not believe in all that. He only went there because the mother insisted. And then he stood his ground. And then the pastor was trying honestly to push him down. He noticed that the pastor was making efforts to bring him down. And then he looked at the mother and saw the plea, the disappointment and the plea on the mother's face.
Please fall.
Yes, please fall. And then he allowed himself to be felled to please his mother. That tells how deceitful people can be with religion in Nigeria.
So that's the critique you're making.
Well, okay.
I mean, I would say that his experience with his father's traditional belief really kind of liberated him to feel that after this disappointment that his father didn't become
Village head.
The
village head,
Village head,
that he could journey beyond and do something different because he had the power and the support of Okike. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yes, Okike.
So I feel like there was this tension in between how we feel empowered by our deity, and I feel it was was very, it was interesting that you had a mother who was practicing this Western religion and this traditional religion, and the impact that it had on Dimka.
Yeah, yeah. Dimkwa left the village in anger. He left because, not because, not because his father and mother were practicing, coming from different religions, but because his father refused to fight back. So he left in the hope that he would prove his father wrong, that where his father has failed, he will succeed. That's the mood. That's the mood when he left. And I think it continued through the book. He kept insisting, even though he kept falling. But he kept insisting until he had the opportunity to go to school. Even though the family had to sell their land, their only land, to make sure he went to school. And that is another thing I want to talk about in Nigeria. You know, when you this comment cuts across the broad cross section of Nigerian society.
Whether ethnic group or class.
Nigerian society. Everyone whose father has to sell their land to send them to school, they graduate, and then they begin to apply for a job, and they're invited for an interview, and they are asked to bring a large sum of money in addition to their qualification.
Right, to bribe.
Yeah, and the family has already sold their only land to send them to school.
Right.
So what's going to happen now? Of course, the family has no more land to sell, so they cannot raise the money.
Yeah.
So he ends up doing migrant work.
We can
So-
identify.
Huh?
So we can identify.
Yes. Yeah. So that's what happens.
Oh.
Yeah.
This is so profound, very profound, and very much, you know, once your family has sold your land and the village has come together because you're the shining hope, you're the
Yes.
social security of the future. So much depend on you, and there's a subtext there. And as a migrant, you know, I can relate to this, of just the psychological burden on you as a person who was the recipient of that money.
Something his brother kept taking advantage of. His younger brother, Machebe, who he
Tiger
describes
spirit.
as being, how do you see that character, Machebe? You remember Machebe? Dinkwa's younger brother,
Yeah.
whom Dinkwa describes as being more purposeful than himself. And then he continued, Machebe is his greatest critic, you know, and then he kept alongside the father, and then he kept trying his best to make sure that they say I am a failure. I will do my best to not come out a failure. I will succeed to prove those people wrong. So that was what kept him going.
Right.
Kept going on and on until he was able to go to school, which is something Machebe continued to hold against him. Our only parcel of land was sold for you. At every point that Dimpa made a mistake, he reminded him that they sold their only parcel of land to send him to school. So much expectation from him.
You know, I think it's interesting that his brother had this fighting spirit,
Yes.
and he didn't like it in his brother when it was used against him, but he wanted his father to have that same fighting spirit that the brother had. And so it's just, you know, that tension between when power is useful and when it's not useful, when it's enacted upon me versus when it's used to actually elevate or to move into a different social class and element. And so that internalized violence that caste system and racism, the transatlantic slave trade have um, hoisted upon people, then is now at tension in this book between when it is in my family and then enacted upon me by my family, but it cannot be the same saving grace for my family. I think is an interesting tension that
Yeah.
you see between the men in the family there.
As we're moving to wrap up soon here and get some questions from the audience, I was asking you earlier about the Nigerian work ethic, right?
Okay.
That ethic that, similar to the Puritan work ethic, that striving, what you've been talking about,
Yeah.
to be village head, to get education. As I said earlier,
Puritan
Nigerians
work
are the,
ethic. I'm sorry, Puritan work ethic.
Nigerians are the most educated group in the United States. So I'm wondering how much these ideas dominate the consciousness and if it can be attributed to a Nigerian work ethic, like these kinds of strivings.
Well, you're just telling me that Nigeria is the most educated tribe in the United States. I didn't know.
I didn't know it
that.
either. I
And
thought it was black.
Oh, yeah.
we definitely don't feel it back home.
Oh, but here,
We do not feel it because the level of poverty is something else. So we definitely don't know about being the most educated tribe in the United States.
but
They should bring some of those education back home, and then to improve our lot, because a lot is wrong in Nigeria now. People are hungry. Yeah, so many people are living. I read the other day where they said 40% of Nigerians are living below the poverty line, but I think it's 70 or 80% of Nigerians.
But
are
it
living in
seems like
poverty.
there's so many also. I remember, I think when I went to Nigeria had destabilized the price of champagne. There were so many champagne ordered in Nigeria. It's like there's
I'm in the wrong
Do you know
conspicuous
it got to,
consumption.
do you know it got to a point where
country.
it got to a point where people had to park their cars because they could not fuel it.
Ah.
Yeah, people started parking their cars because they could not fuel it.
In the land of fuel.
Yes, in the land. That's why I say it's paradoxical. I don't understand.
Interesting.
So how is this caste system at work within the consciousness today? Is it at all
I know
different
somebody.
than how it's explained here?
No, it's not. I know somebody. Well, a little difference. I know somebody who has a friend who would visit him, and then after the friend is gone, the mother would call the son and say, "Why do you allow that man to come to our house? Because he's from the caste." So the mother would not. She doesn't like to see him around the son, because back there people believe that associating yourself with
Show me your friends
somebody
and
from
I'll
that
show
caste.
you who you
Yeah.
are.
So not even that, associating yourself with somebody from that caste is capable of bringing a curse. If you remember the end of the story of Chikelwe and Dimkpa, when he went to Chikelwe took him to the house. He was writing Chikelwe's father's biography, and then they went to the house, and then the mother. When he was introduced to the mother, Chikelwe's mother, the mother called the son aside and said, "You have to dissociate yourself from this guy." Even though they were expecting his return because he had just been cured of epilepsy. And then there was this big party going on in anticipation of his arrival. And then when he arrives, and the mother had a talk with him, and then on the process of explaining about his healing, the mother discovered that it was actually Ezewani. It was in the shrine of Ezewani that the supposed healing took place. And then the mother did not mind about his son being healed. even after several years of trying to heal him
Yeah.
unsuccessfully, what her interest was, what her focus was this boy that took you to Ezenwanye. You have to dissociate yourself from him. I don't want you to have anything to do
Wow.
with anyone from that caste, because the mother is aware of that caste and believes that his associating himself with Chikelu would bring curses, even as enlightened as she is.
And I think that's the big takeaway is that we have to undo the caste within us
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
really challenge that consciousness.
that is one of the reasons I decided to write something about it, to try to open up conversations, to get people. It's something that is happening in a small place, in a kind of hidden place. And then
Yeah.
I thought I should write about it, bring it to a larger, wider audience, so that possibly I could
Because
open conversations. Yeah.
our conversations of caste are usually dominated, especially in the United States, by black and white.
Right.
Right? Oftentimes, even within the United States, we don't see, when we talk about race, it's black and white. We usually don't even see Native Americans, as we recently discussed in our last podcast, or, Latinos or something like that. But even within the diaspora, within black culture,
Yeah.
we beefing. We got beef.
We have been assimilated into a caste system. How can we not assimilate those
Internalize,
beliefs and internalize them? Right.
But we can't tell some of people, some of the beef. we
Right.
got,
Yeah, some conversations you can't have in front of everybody because
Yeah.
everyone said, well, what about you? What about you?
But in spite of all this, you said something about wrapping up just before we wrap up. In spite of all these odds, I want to say that we have a very rich cultural heritage back in Nigeria.
It's evident.
Yeah, I want to talk about something like the Omabe Festival, Omabe Masking Festival, for instance, which I highlighted in the book, and for which Dimpa's father was famous. Yeah, Omabe is described as a dazzling spirit whose costume of bright buttons catches mirror reflections, whose face is defined by horizontal linear radiations, and whose motions are marked by dexterity of body movements. So it's a very, very beautiful culture. But even beyond that, the ethno-aesthetics and the performance theater, Omabe is an agent of social control. Yes.
Speak on it.
But then, recently we've had changes because of the Western judicial system. It's no longer the same. I think the fact that you are masked, is what makes if the community has found someone wanting. For instance, if a man steals his neighbor's goats, if he sleeps with his neighbor's wives, if he does one thing or the other that is against the laws of the community, it is the Omabe that would call him out. And because the Omabe is masked, I think that's the fear of possible reprisal is reduced when the communal punishment is meted out on the person. So that is why Omabe was used as an agent of social control. If couples are having a fight and an Omaba appears at the scene, they stop immediately. Because the way, the perception, the way people, the perception that people have about the spirit, we believe it's a spirit, even though it's somebody who is masked, but it's a spirit. And you do not want to get yourself entangled with a spirit. So the moment Omaba appears in the scene, everyone becomes quiet. You discontinue the fight immediately because there will be consequences, because there will be repercussions, which might not just be physical repercussions. You may not be beaten, but there is that fear that you might end up incurring the wrath of the spirit, and then a curse in your family.
An intergenerational.
Yes, intergenerational curse. So I just wanted to talk about the Omaba Festival to highlight the fact that we have a very good, a very resplendent culture, in spite of the things that are happening back home economically.
And do you see your writing as a part of a continued resistance, in the tradition of Chinua Achebe, who is kind of like maybe highlighting that tradition and the richness of it and the prevailing forces, the tradition versus, modernity, that kind of a dynamic existence?
I think beyond writing, trying to write a compelling story that will captivate your readers, there are social ills we should take care of in our writing. It's not just about writing a beautiful prose or writing suspenseful plots. It's not just about that. It's about trying to, like I said earlier, writing about things that are hidden, things that are not known, trying to bring them to a larger audience, and then opening conversations so that people will get to know what is happening. I just told you that this caste problem thrives in an unspoken manner. We all know it's there, but nobody talks, nobody speaks. But we all know it's there. And young people suffer it the most because, that's why one of the reasons I chose to write in the perspective of a young person, because young people are known to have even committed suicide because they were not allowed to pursue their romantic relationship across their caste.
If your society is structured where your marriage is arranged and if you're marriageable, is determined by, if you have a taboo on you, you're not going to get chosen. Your family is going to be shunned. You're going to be ostracized.
One of the characters there was ostracized from his family because he married someone from that caste. And then the family ostracized him. Nobody wanted to have anything to do with him anymore for fear of being contaminated. This story, it started as a short story. The Liquid Eye of Moon, it started as a short story which was published in 2017 in Elsewhere Lit. With the title Shallow Grave. Shallow Grave. Shallow Grave is the story of a widow, a childless widow, who was ostracized in her community because she killed a god incarnated in a tortoise. And when she passed, her church congregants hired foreigners to bury her because if they
If they touched her.
if they got involved, they would be
Yeah.
ostracized. You know, so it actually started from there, and then I broadened it to you know, I fleshed it out, bringing in the human tabooing aspect of the story. Because human tabooing is different from the regular caste, like I told you. The caste that we know, the caste that people have written about.
Right.
The woman that died childless, who killed a god, incarnated in a tortoise and was ostracized. It is different from this caste. You know, this is a caste. I don't know. It's so deadly, and
It's a slow
people from that caste have continued to suffer all forms of abuse, all forms of embarrassment, all forms of oppression. And there's nothing anyone seems to be able to do about it. Everyone is silent. When it's the turn of the man to become the village head, he was getting ready in the house. And then he got the information that the process had already been completed and the new village head had been named. So that is the kind of oppressive system these people are living in.
I think that's especially poignant that it's the evening of the first presidential debate this evening. And to consider, fact or fiction, to consider how ideas and sentiment of caste are on America's main stage now, and how the possibility and even the continued reproduction of caste is at stake, and the livelihood of our children and how they see themselves positioned in this society is at stake. And I say that it's a slow death, and I, as an educator, I say all the time to I'm a teacher educator, so I teach teachers how to teach. And I tell them that education is a matter of life and death. It's not a luxury. It is a privilege, but it's not something. It's not an accessory for most. And so I'm really glad that we got to have this conversation of understanding how we all can be accessories to caste, and what we need to do to have accessibility be expanded for all persons and people by undoing that work within ourselves and being a part of the work that is structuring our political system for us to continue to act upon those beliefs.
Yeah, well said. Can you tell us what's next for you?
I'm working on a novel, on a second novel.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm working on a second novel.
Okay. Have you seen any systems of caste or anything that may have altered your views of how you've grown up and thought about the things that you've written about here in Fayetteville?
I think a lot has changed. Yes, a lot has changed. For instance, I can walk into Fayetteville Public Library, read any book of my choice in this cozy setting, as against back home when I had very limited access to books. And I think it has helped my growth as a writer. And I have the Artist Protection Fund, the Arkansas International Writer at Risk Residency Program to thank for bringing me here on this fellowship.
Yes, and now you're on to brighter horizons,
Yes.
and we'd love to hear more from you as you continue to grow as an artist, as a writer. Thank you for having this talk with us.
Yes.
We're going to take some few questions from the audience if they have them. Audience.
Just a moment. We're going to give
Okay.
you the mic.
Yeah, to follow on your last comment, you're the first writer in the Writer at Risk program at the university, and that program is going to likely continue. I know you don't talk about this much, but you were actually at risk in Nigeria. Could you briefly describe writing under conditions at risk and how you operated here in a completely different environment?
Yeah, writing at home was, they are not even comparable. I don't even know how to begin to compare writing at home and writing here. It's true I wrote that book back home, but I think I've conditioned myself to being able to work under
Dire circumstances.
serious pressure. For instance, I did migrant work. Which I
Read about.
I wrote something about that in that book because, like I said, you end up a migrant worker if you can get a job, which is very plentiful in Nigeria. Jobs are everywhere. You find them everywhere in Nigeria. Yeah. So, writing in Nigeria under my second book is actually on the conflict in my community between cowherds and crop farmers. And sometimes in the night we would hear sounds of gunshots and in panic, and everyone would take to the head, so you run. Everyone will run in the dark, you stumble, you grope in the dark, looking for where to hide. So writing under such tension can be very difficult. But I continued despite the odds. And then finding myself here, I realized, it was when I came to this place that I realized what I had faced back home.
It was so normal to you.
It's so different. It's so different. I've learned a lot. I'm somebody that likes to, when I get stuck in my writing, I like to read. And I have my choice of books. But I would not find such books in Nigeria. But here, I go to the university library, I find the books, I come to to the Fayetteville Public Library, I find those books, and I read, and I get inspired, and I continue to work. So that's why I say it's not comparable. There's no way I can compare writing at home and writing here. And I have friends who have given me the encouragement, friends who I give my writing to, and then they read and then give me feedback, because I value feedback, however snaggy. Yeah, feedback, criticism is something that challenges me to write more. I want to be challenged to write more, to write better, to use criticism to improve my writing. So it has been very different here. I have been able to write short stories here. I have been able to finish, as a matter of fact, I've finished my second novel, which I did here, within a space of it's not up to 1.5 years. It's just a year and 4 months that I've been here. But I've done so much work. I've done so much writing because I am encouraged to work, encouraged to write. Bill, I don't know if this answers your question. Okay.
I wonder if, irrespective of the resources like the program, if one had never left their community, if you had never left, would you have felt the necessity to write and reflect about this story? Or how did being put into a new environment and a new cast impact or make you see, oh, I have a voice and I need to use this voice in this way? Because I think otherwise we can fall into this trope of exceptionality. Well, if you did it, then others can do it too. But if there is this leap pad of, no, I needed this experience to open my eyes to the fact that my experience was valuable in the first place to even write about and share with the world, that it would have or would not have come out. You know?
Yeah. I have learned so much, especially about the publishing process. I had difficulties finding a publisher because I was in Nigeria. Yeah. It is different for writers in Nigeria. It is different. It's not the same with writers in Nigeria as opposed to writers in the Western world. Before the advent of traditional publishers like Farafina, Cassava Republic, and a few others, whom I consider the first generation of indigenous traditional publishers in Nigeria. It seemed that Nigeria seemed to have lost its traditional publishing culture. And I feel it's because of poor readership. So it's generally easier to get published in the Western world. Yeah.
Well, we count our blessings right there and take advantage of it where we can. Any other questions from the audience? Thank you, Bill, for that question.
I'd like to mention just at least 3 takeaway points. I'll need to read more about the Nigerian Civil War. I'll need to study that a bit more. I'd also, there's another author, Achebe, who is not Chinua. You know, so I'd want to...
Wandu Achebe.
Wandu
Achebe, yes.
So I need to study that.
Yeah.
And then your comment about post-traumatic, oh Lordy, that hit hard. You know, so I'll need to delve into that one too. Thank you so much for expanding our minds.
Yes.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Well, we thank you all
Yeah.
as our audience being a part of this live recording of the Undisciplined podcast. And Uchenna, thank you so much for this piece of work.
Thank you for
and
having
how it's going to contribute to our reflective process as we continue to transform our systems and transform our individual lives as well. So.
Thank you so much, Uchenna.
Thank you
We
for
wish
having
you
me.
all the best as you move forward, and congratulations on
Yes.
Thank you
publishing
very much. Thank
this
you very much.
coming-of-age novel
Yeah.
that
Yes.
young Nigerians will and people throughout the world will be able to read.
It's a
you very
great read, too.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I've learned so much even in the first 45 pages. So
Thank you.
there's so much to be learned about Nigerian and Igbo culture. So I thank you so much for contributing this to the canon of knowledge.
Thank you very much.
All
Thank
right.
you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
And if you are interested in purchasing Uchenna's book, they do have them outside for sale. And I'm sure Uchenna would not mind signing
Yeah,
them.
of course.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I think you should. If this is not on your summer reading list, it definitely should be. I can't wait to finish it. I just got it yesterday. So.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.